Hello and welcome to IndiePod, an indie games podcast, your weekly source for all the indie games news you need to know. This week we are bringing you 3 awesome indie game news stories before, of course, we hop in to News Cram, where we've got actually a quick news story, which is, I mean, in a sense exciting, but also in a very real sense, not at all. It's very much a, like, come back when you actually have the games, you know what I mean? Then we've got some new stuff, an interesting game over on Kickstarter to check out, a whole buttload of listener questions, and one gigantic story, thanks to the Wombat Emperor himself, Mr. Philip Renshaw from Australia. But before we get to that, I would like to introduce myself, Vaughn Hyde, alongside my illustrious co-host, the biggest of average, Josh Boys. How you doing today, Big Josh Boy?
I'm doing good. I just want to say that I'm very upset with the news articles that were picked this week, though.
Really?
I'm looking through here, all right? And nowhere in there do we have the fact that The Binding of Isaac release date was dropped.
Was it? Because I literally didn't know. Was it really?
Yeah, the new DLC has been officially coined as, I believe it's the end of March. It's like March 31st.
Well, shit. Maybe people's waiting until the end, till next episode. I don't know. I mean, you can look it up right now and tell me. No, dude, okay, so I got a couple things I got to get off my chest here in the beginning, as per freaking usual. Mm-hmm. One, honestly, it's kind of like, it's kind of weird. I totally understand why it is, but it's so weird this time of year in games media when you go to large sites and just see them barren. Like, they have like a couple of different news articles that are basically just listicles, and then they cover like the big stuff if anything massive happened, but everything else is basically ignored because everybody's like on a holiday break for the most part.
Right.
Until you go to like basically sites where people, like, they obviously get paid. Like Twinfinite, it's just a smaller site. Like, they're like, people don't make their career off of Twinfinite kind of a thing. Like, they aren't making a massive salary, but they're still making something. So like small sites like Twinfinite and Nintendo Life, like, they are just churning out articles. And I just gotta say, I appreciate them for not taking like a holiday break. Everybody else has got, like, go to IGN. There's like literally, I had to find 2 weeks worth of articles because we didn't do an actual show last week. So I was like, you know what? I'll just cover any of the shit that came out that week too. Like, whatever. We didn't even have that much news. Going through, it's like maybe 10 articles posted in the past like 2 weeks.
Damn.
I'm like, what? And like several of them are just listicles that basically are the same thing but with different names. So it's like, here's what you need to watch on Netflix in January. Here's what's coming to Netflix in January. And they're the same fucking things. I'm like, what? Why would you post both of these? In what world is that a good idea?
More clicks.
They're like, yeah, I mean, I guess in one, they're probably just like, technically this one came out in November, or like this one came out in December, but you should watch it in January. Like, it's really annoying. I just have a problem with it, okay? So that's why I'm saying, I wouldn't surprise me if this, like, did that news drop today, do you know? Or was it yesterday?
No. It was a while ago. It was like,
what the fuck?
It was like a couple days ago.
Who the fuck reported this?
Well,
I couldn't find it.
I just saw it because Edmund actually tweeted the trailer. So it's on YouTube. I don't know if there's like an official article. I just saw the new trailer for it.
Yeah, I went through IGN, Polygon, GameSpot, Twinfinite, Nintendo Life, Game Informer. I just skim Game Informer a lot of the time because, like, they've had not many articles on that much, and when they do have them, they're not for like indie games for the most part. But I went through all of them, did not find a single article about this. Just saying, not my fault. Not my fault. Okay.
Totally hands off. All right.
Yeah,
it's okay. That's what I'm here for.
My fault.
So the people know.
Did you find what the release date was?
Yeah, so it's March 31st.
Oh shit! Are you stoked? This is the Repentance DLC, right?
Correct. Yes, I'm very stoked.
Ooh.
I've seen a couple of they've been doing little bits and pieces of releasing different, like, here's a new character, here's a new mechanic and things like that, and it just, every time I'm always like, this looks so different from anything that I have seen before in Binding of Isaac, so I'm definitely excited to check it out. I
love when people came at you for your game of the year picks, basically, where they're just like, Josh sets up rules and then immediately breaks them. And then you're like, yeah, dude, expect the same thing next year. Let's talk about the best DLC of 2021.
Fuck it. Look, man, rules are meant to be broken. Just how
I
it
can't
is.
wait for us to do our game of the year 2021 and it actually be the Binding of Isaac Repentance.
It's literally just, I'm going to be like, here's my top 5 list, and it's just going to be that listed 5 times.
I really hope it's as good as you.
I hope so too. Yeah, as I'm hyping it.
Yeah, well, I just know how much you love Binding of Isaac, so I truly hope it's as good as you want it to be and as, like, Sam wants it to be.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know a lot of the people in our community are pretty big Binding of Isaac fans, so
Hope so.
I really hope it's as good as you guys, like, want it to be.
Yeah,
I hope it's not a letdown.
I would hate that. I don't think it will be, but, you know, there's always room for upset.
I don't know, dude. Ed's just turning out good shit, I guess. I don't know, like...
You don't play any of his shit, though, right?
Well, no, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, it's not necessarily for me. Good jelly, not my jam. Thank you, Josh. But, yeah, I've always thought it was cool. Only one that I've ever really played is Super Meat Boy. But, you know, whatever, dude.
Super Meat Boy.
The second thing... Yeah, good shit. Super Meat Boy. Not Super Meat Boy forever. That was you.
Talk about that later.
The second thing I want to talk about is this might be a controversial topic, okay?
Uh-oh.
So just bear with me. Like, batten down the hatches. We
no.
might get canceled, okay?
It's bound to
What
happen.
is up with the seasonal, like, foods that chains bring back? So I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say I've never had a McRib, but what is up with
man.
people's,
People are
like,
going
fucking
nuts.
obsession
I
with the
love it.
McRib?
I love
like,
not the sandwich. I just love I love the guy, the
Yeah.
like commercial, the ba-da-ba-ba-ba. Like, I fucking love that
Yeah.
jingle.
And then when it disappears, it's like people want to fucking kill themselves. It's like their life builds up every year to having the McRib. I mean, it would have been hilarious if 2020 just never had a McRib release. I would have laughed my ass off because then it would have truly been the worst year ever, apparently.
Apparently.
But
I don't.
yeah, so the McRib's coming back, and then Taco Bell's like, we have to bring something back. Why bring back the delicious, like, little chicken taco, like, rolls that they had that you got the special spicy ranch? Like, why bring that back? That was just delicious. Instead, we'll bring back these nut sacks that are called nacho fries. What is up with nacho fries, dude? They're not good. Taco Bell doesn't know how to make a French fry. Let's be real, let alone coating it in fucking Doritos. Like, what is their deal?
I don't know, man. I've never tried either of the two. The only thing that I know for, like, the McRib is anytime I look at it, I'm like, I really liked a sandwich that was in, like, middle school lunches that was basically a McRib. And I'm like, maybe it tastes the same, but I just haven't tried it. And I probably never will.
So badly, I want to know if it's just nostalgia, like rose-tinted glasses, or if the lunch when you went to middle school was that good.
Oh, I don't know.
Like, because I remember it so vividly. I'm like, this is the best piece of pizza I've ever had in my fucking life. And I bet if I had it now, it would just be nutsack.
It would probably be just like cardboard with very bland cheese on it. It's literally all
more
it is.
than likely. But in my head, though, it was the greatest piece of pizza that had ever existed.
No. Elementary school and middle school lunch was meh. But I actually went to a high school that had, like, a culinary school in it, so there was just, like, much better food.
That's dope.
Because I went to a like, it was half high school, half technical, like, trade center. So
okay, yeah, we have those here.
Yeah, so part of your high school would be you have regular classes, and then when you got into 11th and 12th grade, they were like, okay, half of the time that you're in high school, you're just doing a specific trade. And so
that's cool.
Yeah, so part of it was like a culinary thing if you wanted to go that track. And so there was just, like, really good food at our high school all the time. It was pretty great.
Yeah, but to get back on track.
Yeah, what is this podcast about?
I want to find a McRib, if I'm being completely honest. Like, I want to try the sandwich. I've heard it's good, but I don't believe it. Taco Bell's got nutsack for food. Like, they got rid of the Cool Ranch Doritos Locos Taco, and I will never ingest Taco Bell again until they bring it back.
Damn.
And speaking of bringing shit back, what's up, Carl's Jr. and Hardee's? Bring back them fucking chili cheese fries. Like, fucking hate you. You destroyed my life. But
man,
this is about indie games.
Yeah, I didn't know today we were just going to talk about fast food. This is an interesting twist.
Told you I had a couple things to bring up.
All right, there we go.
little bit of housekeeping before we get into what we've been playing this week. Our developer interview is Michael O'Kane of Level 19 Entertainment, talking about their game Inertial Drift, not initial. It's inertial. I just didn't.
Good try though.
Inertial Drift, like inertia, but it's inertial drift. Yeah, over there. That one is going to be going live Wednesday instead. Well, I mean, okay, I also have to talk about this. For some reason, our episodes are not posting on Google Podcasts or Spotify. Literally have no idea why. Everywhere else, totally fine. It's like easy peasy, lemon squeezy. But everywhere else, they're just like... But those two specific platforms are like, eat a dick. So I have to figure that out. I'm going to hopefully get it figured out today, but... You can listen on like Stitcher, iTunes. I believe some of the people in our community said they like use Pocket Cast and other things where you can subscribe to just specific RSS feeds. So those are good ones. Yeah, if you're on Google Podcasts or listen on Spotify, I will get it fixed.
Damn.
I'm currently chatting with one of the support people because they're like, try to change the name a little bit to see if it updates. And I'm like, well, I put out a literally entirely new episode and it's not there. So I don't think it's an update issue. And they're like, okay, just like send us your RSS feed. So I have to do that. And I'm like, this is fucking dumb.
Damn,
I hate
that's really bad.
Stupid.
Fun times.
All the other people in our like podcast network, they've had issues, and I always felt good that we never had any issues. I was like, sweet. Never have an issue with like uploading or anything. It's totally fine. And then like, well, I mean an issue like a technical issue.
Right.
Because I've definitely forgot to upload things. And
all the time.
yeah, this is not individual superiority. It was just luck. And then like the second, I swear to God, I just fucking jinxed us. And then it was just like, nah, 2 platforms, eat shit. Damn. You don't even get to listen to them on those. So
rough.
Yeah, listen to the developer interview. Michael O'Kane of Level 91 Entertainment for Inertial Drift. Do you remember anything about this one?
I do. It's a pretty cool game. So it's basically it's a racing game, but its whole mechanic and the quirkiness of it is it's all about drifting. And so the way that it works is you normally, when you're driving in car games, you would have the brake and the gas, and you would use that to then drift based on the amount of motion and how fast you're going and all the stuff for drifting, whatever. In this one, instead, there's literally 2 main, there's a go and a brake, but the 2 main ways that you drift are you have your left thumbstick for driving left and right, and then the right one literally is just to drift, and it's the direction you drift in. So it's like,
that's cool.
Yeah, so it's a very different approach to how to drive a car in video games. And a lot of people, one of the parts of the interview was, is this something that comes natural to people? Because it's like a whole different take on it. And one of the things was that even though it is a new change of pace, a lot of people, even if they're not good at games, will end up picking it up pretty easily. So I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. But it looks the game looks really interesting, and the interview
was gonna say
good.
The game, it's its art style is really sweet.
Yeah.
It looks good.
Yeah,
I'm honestly kind of blown away by it.
I would recommend it. Good stuff.
All right. Yeah, that Inertial Drift right now is actually, for the next 2 days, I'll try to post this on the Twitter, but for the next 2 days, it's actually 25% off. Over on Steam, it's $14.99. So go check it out. It's over there. I'll post it on the Twitter. And if you're listening to this, let me see, from 48 hours from now, the patrons will be the ones actually listening to this, possibly. So I'm not exactly sure if it'll still be on sale, but I'll tweet about it. So follow us on Twitter at IndiePod. Because I just devolve into a troll.
That sounds about right.
I was going to say. So please check out the IndiePod store for our t-shirts and stickers. Soon we will have enough money to actually, requisition or commission some new artwork, so we'll get some new t-shirts, hats, and such up there. Please check out our YouTube channel where you can watch these episodes entirely in video format over there, and soon we will have some other stuff up there as well. Josh and I are going to be working on possibly doing some Let's Plays starting next week, so we'll see what happens. Can't guarantee anything, but It is very possible. Please leave us reviews on any sorts of different like platforms. Specifically, iTunes, I guess, helps the most, which would be really nice because from what I understand, iTunes reviews can actually help us get into conventions without actually having to pay for a ticket, which would be super cool because I don't want to have to pay for a ticket. You know what I mean?
Damn, that'd be great.
We get like press passes kind of a thing. So that would be really cool. So please leave us good reviews over on iTunes. That would help us out quite a bit. And lastly, thank you so much to our patrons, Will C. Mixomatosis, aka Mix, Zach Durham, Chase Hopkins, Philip Renshaw, the Wabat Emperor of no, he's from Australia. I was going to say Canada.
Always fuck that up.
Every time, dude. I always got to fuck something up. Chris Penwell, Josh Nichols, and Sam Fillion from Canada. He's from Canada.
He's from Canada, yes.
I should just start doing it like Philip Renshaw's from Canada and Sam Fillion's from Australia to just mix people up. Like it's like a Greenland, Iceland thing. Where it's just like, oh, where they at? Just in case an assassin ever tries to find them. Because, I mean, one of them is an emperor.
That's true.
You got to remember
that. Is true.
That. And they apparently use our podcast because they know they're such a big fan. Very similar to the interview with Kim Jong-un being a big fan of Dave Skylark, I believe is his name. Yeah, you got to watch out.
You got to be
okay?
onto something here.
Yeah,
you know?
We're not going to sell you out. Don't you worry, Wombat Emperor. We'll keep you safe because you're a gem. You got them tiny paws, and apparently you've got fucking kangaroos with lasers. I'm not saying that we're being held hostage in any way, but it is very possible. Josh, scratch your nose if you're being held hostage.
Yeah. Man, where's this podcast going? Let's talk about games.
I don't know. Yeah, I have no idea. Generally, I really don't know. I had to vamp there for a second because I forgot to grab 2 of the listener questions. So, had to do that real quick. But, Josh, you got a whole bunch of games you've been playing this week. So, tell me about Super Meat Boy Forever by Team Meat.
Yeah, so, and it's funny. So, today I'll be talking about 3 games. I actually have more that I've been playing over the break, but I was like, I'm just going to, maybe I'll spread them out a bit. But the first one that I wanted to talk about is Super Meat Boy Forever because it's probably one of the more recent, well, technically all of these are recent, but this code was specifically provided to us by Team Meat, which is awesome. Thank you for allowing us the chance to actually review the game in the means that we do. But Super Meat Boy Forever, for those who don't know, is a sequel to Super Meat Boy, which the Meat Boy series has always been about very tight platforming, very difficult levels, but just like amazing design. And with Super Meat Boy Forever, this sequel is very strange because it takes the approach of turning the game into a what's the term that they use, like constant runner, like
endless runner.
That's okay. So it turns it into an endless runner,
like Temple Run or Super Mario Run.
Exactly, yes. So the weird thing about that is if you played the Meat Boy series beforehand, you would know that you had the freedom in this platforming element to go any which way at any point, and there was a lot of maneuverability with that was a beneficial thing because a lot of the challenge was jumping back and forth between walls, avoiding things, being able to make very precise jumps and get to different areas and platforms and things. And this is a little bit different because with it being an endless runner, you're constantly moving. Like it's endlessly running. So the way it works is you still bounce off walls and you're still doing a lot of this tight platforming, but you don't have the same amount of control. And instead it'll be like the game adds this element where you have to know like where you were running from last, because as you slide down a wall, your character will keep moving that way versus, being able to just slide and then walk a different way. So you have to be very meticulous about where you're going. You have to now attack enemies to chain different like hovers, so to speak. So like to get through different areas, you'll have to like punch these enemies that are in the way so you can have a farther jump. And it honestly, it works out really well. This is a great game. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm about to shit all over the game in some regards, but like, it's amazing. The only reason like I want to say that like I'm going to shit over it is because if this was the first in the series, I think it would be praised like there would be so much praise for it, right? This would be something where people would see it and they'd be like, this is a really cool way to take that endless runner genre and really take it up a notch. Like, it's done so well. The bosses in it are a lot of fun, although super frustrating. But it just doesn't feel like Meat Boy. Like, that's my biggest critique on this game, is it does not feel at all like Meat Boy. And it's one of those things where it's like, I feel like it could have just been a different series altogether. And I know you obviously want to have Meat Boy, like the franchise behind it, because you're going to get so many people. But like, it being that and not being Meat Boy, so to speak, just really kind of sours it in a way. That being said, like, the game is still great. Like, the animation, they have like cutscenes in between every world, which are super cute, super funny, like really well done. You have all of these different levels that are very challenging, and I think that the way they did these is super accessible in a game that is extremely challenging. So to take a quick step back into like what that means, each one of these levels in previous generations of Meat Boy franchises is you would have your character running around in one specific level, and you would have to get from point A to point B, and you would have to do that in one life, right? If you died, you have to do the whole thing over again. So this one is totally different, where what you do is, because it's an endless runner, you're getting to checkpoint to checkpoint to checkpoint. Every time you die, you go right back to where you last checkpointed. So there's a number of these in each level, and so you get past a really hard part, and you're like, okay, cool, I don't have to do that anymore. And I think that's super, just so smart, especially since it's an endless runner and like these are longer levels than you would have to in Meat Boy. But the way they did this is to unlock Dark World levels, which are harder levels of the current ones that you're playing. You have to get like a perfect time. It's very close to perfect on those levels. And the way it works is every time you checkpoint, it saves that time. So when you die, if you die like 10 times afterwards in one area, as long as you finish that area with a time that's like quick enough, you still keep that and can perfect the level to a degree where you're able to access that next world. So it's like, it just made it, like I said, a much more accessible way of being like, hey, this is a really hard level, or this is a really hard thing to get, but like you can keep trying it until you get the right time. So I thought it was super good. The only thing that I wish they had was like a quick restart button for that, because you would get these things where I would try to get like these challengeable, like you're collecting binkies for the little baby, which is called Nugget from both Meat Boy and Bandage Girl. And so those are just the same as what Band-Aids were in Meat Boy, where they're literally just harder challenges in a level of something to collect, whether it be you have to get there in a certain amount of time, or it's just you have to jump in a way that's much more dangerous than if you just avoided it. And so like if you wanted to collect that, you would play to a certain point and you can redo, like, you know, you could die and redo those different things over and over again. But if you accidentally pass that section and hit a checkpoint, you would then have to restart the level over again. And like, I wish there was a way where I could just quick restart to a certain checkpoint, or so that I could quick restart into the level again, as opposed to having to like kill myself and then try again and go out and back into the level. Like, it was just like, there's little tweaks that I think could be done there that would just make it quicker and snappier for someone who just wants to like perfect it. For people who are just trying to get from point A to point B, they're not going to care. But like, I wanted to keep collecting the thing, and then I kept getting pissed off because I had to keep restarting the entire level to go back, and I was like, fuck this. And then like there was an area that I just didn't do because I was like, I'm not going to waste so much time because I keep having to restart the level. But I'll quickly go into bosses, because I think they're one of the things that shines the most in this game. Is at the end of each world you have a boss to fight, and it's literally it's such a weird mechanic because it's an endless runner, right? And you still have that same gameplay loop where you are like running from side to side. And in there, the first boss, you're like, oh, okay, this is interesting. And you're bouncing around in this one small section, and you're beating up by like constantly pressing the attack button. Whereas in the second one, it gets like a little bit more chaotic. And like, as you go to each world, they really did add like a level of severity and difficulty, and the bosses get crazier and crazier, to the point where the last boss, you literally fight like a god, and it's like these two giant like hands that are coming and trying to slap you, and you have to go through this whole giant level of running around. And like, that was one of the ones where if you died, you had to start the whole thing over and over again. That one didn't take me as long as the third world boss. That one, I literally died like 200 plus times before I got it.
Holy shit.
I was like, yeah. And it was one of those things where I was like so close to just being like, you know what? I don't even want to do this kind of a thing. And I kept trying. And eventually I was just like, I got it like barely. And I was like, fuck, never again. Like it was one of those things where I was just like, oh, God, it was so tough. But like,
does it still do the thing at the end of the level where you get to see all the iterations of Meat Boy or Bandage Girl like running and dying?
Yeah. So it's really cool the way they do that is at the end you have that where you'll go through the endless runner and it'll just be like millions of your Meat Boys just jumping around and killing themselves into like the final one. So they still have
those were always awesome.
Yeah, they still have a lot of great stuff and they still brought over a lot of things from Meat Boy that, you know, a lot of people will love, a lot of people will remember and this once again is a great game. It does not feel anything like what Super Meat Boy was. So like there's a lot of people who might play this and just be like, this is not what I'm looking for kind of a thing. Like
yeah, I think it's kind of weird that they don't even really mention that change in gameplay. Yeah. Like in trailers and everything. I understand why they would because it's a pretty massive change for gameplay whereas like I haven't played this, but I played Super Meat Boy, and you're basically in control of everything. It's just like a precision platformer. Mm-hmm. But this seems more like based on timing and less based on platforming skill, I guess, for the most part. Because I'm assuming the button layout isn't all that crazy. There's just like a jump button and an attack button and maybe a slide.
So yeah, so there's a slide, there's an attack button, there's a jump button, and the button scheme. So this is one of the things that's interesting because there's a lot of games that do things like this where they'll have a very minimalistic button style, but I think there's still a lot that goes into this, especially with like the levels and the different enemies that you'll find, because it's not just jump back and forth. There's like a ton of different areas where you'll have things like in the last one, you have keys that you have to go from point A to point B. They have these teleport pipes. They have different characters that you'll have to hit so that you can jump off of them and bounce through, or like have to hit them so that they destroy barrels or crates that are in one area so you can get through. There's these giant like orb creatures who you have to punch, and they'll then go around you in this magic sphere, and then you'll have to punch it back at other people, and so you have to use that. And like there's a lot of mechanics in here that go a step past just having, you know, the 3 buttons, or so to speak. So
yeah,
it's not
I said
like
that and it kind of sounded derogatory. I basically just meant like it's much different than Meat Boy, and I was trying to get to the point that like you'd think that they'd point that out so people could prepare themselves for this change, instead of eventually purchasing the game and finding out that it's what is essentially like an endless runner. And it's kind of like they seem like 2 entirely different gameplay styles for the most part.
Yeah, it's interesting because like I said, it carries over so many elements from the original like games, but at the same time it just doesn't feel at all the same. It's so different in just that main mechanic of just like you're always running. You always have to go forward in one direction or the other, right? And they find ways and mechanics that switch it up and make it feel like a really good game for this genre, but it never seems like it's going to be something like me. Like I don't know, it's something that I'm harping on a lot, but it's one of those things where I'm saying it specifically because if you are a huge fan of Meat Boy, there is a chance you will hate this game because it just does not feel the same. Another point to mention is like this is a pretty short game. Short if you want.
Yeah, I swear to God, you beat it pretty quickly. Like you were like, oh yeah, I gave you the code, and the next day you were like, done.
Yeah. So and short if you want to just go through the story. There's still a lot of, you know, worlds, and like there's a world after the story is finished that you can keep continuing through, and there is the dark levels that I mentioned, which are just more challenging levels, so you can unlock all of those and play through that. So like there's still a good amount of content, and there's replayability for, you know, a good chunk of time, but like the main story I beat in probably like 4 to 5 hours, I think. But, you know, take that with a grain of salt. Like I said, we got this for free. I probably still would have paid for it anyway because I wanted to try this because I love the Meat Boy series. It's not what I wanted, but I did have fun with it.
Yeah, the way you're describing it, it's making me think of like the Uncanny Valley, where it's like it's super similar. It's like close but no cigar.
Right.
Where you just it makes you feel a little bit different, but it's almost, the feeling is almost ineffable because you can't describe why it feels so different, but it just does.
Yeah.
So I totally understand it. Super Meat Boy Forever looks pretty cool. How are you enjoying using and playing on the Epic Game Store, dude?
Oh man, the
are
Epic
you playing
Game
this on your Switch?
No, I specifically asked for the Epic Game Store because it applies to my rule of I can play games on
you got
on
it for
Epic.
free. Yeah,
I got it for free, so I can play it. I wouldn't if I had to. If the developers did not provide a copy, which once again, thank you. I just would have bought it on my Switch, which I think would have sucked actually, because like pressing that button over and over again and constantly like going back and forth, like I feel like it would have been annoying if you don't have like an actual controller, which I don't for the Switch because I just use the Joy-Cons all the time.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, but otherwise, you make do.
All right, so let's hear about the second game you're playing, Omori by Omocat. I watched you stream a little bit of this the other day. It looked pretty interesting.
This is a weird game. This is such a good game, though, man. I'm so close to. I literally had to push off this episode by a couple minutes because I just wanted to get to what I thought was the ending, but was just another section.
That was so funny. You came in and then you're like, "Nah, I'm not even close."
Dude, because if you were playing the game and you got to that part, I was just like, "What? I need to know what's happening." It's so good, man.
Does it get to like horror eventually? What I saw you playing, like it's advertised as like a horror RPG, and what I saw you playing, I was like, I don't see how this is horror necessarily.
It's pretty dark.
Okay, so it gets there. Okay,
yeah, it gets
cool.
there. It gets there. So this is I don't want to give any spoilers away because like the whole point of this game is that you need to really just play it because the story it's good. But it's described as a surreal psychological horror game. It's an RPG. It's a turn-based game, and the way it works. So why you jumped into the stream and you're like, why is everything so colorful and it's just like a cutesy RPG, is because you're literally in like a dream world almost. Like you're in what's known as the white space basically. And so you're playing as this character Omori, who has a couple of different friends that are tagging along with them, and the main premise of the story is that one of their friends has gone missing and they have to find him. All throughout this, you're also then playing in like a secondary world, which is more of like a real world, which has many of the same characters. And so like, I won't go any deeper than that because I don't want to give anything away, but the story is so good. And in midst of all of that, there's also this turn-based RPG, which is actually more in depth than I would have thought because I love the way they do this. So they play into emotions a lot in this game. Like that's a big selling point for this game. Selling point is probably not the best word, but it's like the major piece to everything that's going on in the world around you. So any character, whether it's an enemy or someone that's on your party, they can feel a certain emotion. They can feel sadness, they can feel happiness, they can feel anger. And you can even double that, which will make like if you're happy times 2, you'll be ecstatic. So like that is important because while you're playing and fighting in a match, you'll get kind of like a rock, paper, scissors effect where like happiness will beat sadness, but, anger will beat sadness. I forget exactly what it was. But the way it works is each one of those emotions will have another element where like if you're sad, your character is going to be much higher defense, but will not do as much damage. Or if they're happy, they are going to have a chance, like a higher chance of critical attacks, and they're faster, but they can sometimes miss. So like there's a lot of things that you play into this, and then your skills that each of those characters have will play into if you're sad with this character, you'll do more damage, or if you're happy with this character, you'll end up slowing the enemy down versus whatever different like of not using emotions. And the reason why this game is so good, though, is because as you're playing through, you're finding out the story of really why you're in this kind of strange white space world. You're trying to find this character. You're finding out this hidden dark secret that's happened of like why there's like this psychological trauma around you, and it's like from at least where I just got to, it's pretty crazy. But also it's just fucking weird. Like, I think that's one of my favorite parts about this game is it's just strange as hell. When you're in this world, like, the strangest thing that happened was I literally fought a download window. Like, I was like, what is going on? There was an area, when I was on the stream, there was an area where it just said like 404. You could clearly see it, and a character who wasn't moving. And I was like, I bet something's going to like break here. And I walked over it, and the screen like kind of shut down, and I was like, oh yeah, I can't move my character. And then all of a sudden a little window popped up, and I was like, oh, what the hell is this? And then I started fighting it, and I was like, what? And like, that's just one of the, like, we have a listener question, and this is basically like, you could take like any one of these characters from this game, and it would be a weird character from a video game. Like, there's just I don't know. It's so good. There's so much weird shit. You end up jumping into a whale's mouth. You then have to end up fighting the whale because it's hungry and wants to eat you. Who could have seen that coming?
Some weird Pinocchio shit.
Yeah, some weird Pinocchio shit. He's constantly swallowing you. It's great. I don't want to rant too much about it. I know there were some concerns, I think, with this game, because I think it was like in a long time coming. It was originally like a Kickstarter game or something like that. Like, there's some history.
Back in like 2013 or something.
Yeah,
it's taken quite a while to come out.
Yeah, there's some history with it, and I won't touch upon that because I don't know anything other than I saw that this was coming out recently, and I was like, this seems like a good game. I want to see what it's all about. So I don't know anything about, that whole kerfuffle, but I could just say that I'm enjoying a lot of my time with it, and it has been quite a time sink, because this one, as opposed to the 5 hours or so for Meat Boy, I'm like 22 hours into this now.
Damn, dude. What is this on Game Pass? Did you get a code from the developer? What are you playing it on?
I bought it, and I'm playing it on Steam.
Oh, you bought it?
I bought a game?
Man.
So weird. Yeah, I buy games still.
No, I believe you. Yeah, it's just it's crazy. I thought it might have come to Game Pass or something.
No. I mean, if it does, though, people should definitely try it. But I think it's worth the $20 for sure.
Shit, dude. If it comes to Game Pass, maybe it'll be one of our book club games,
I
also love that, like, now that we're changing it to the book club, fucking Phil's just like, man, really wish I would have voted for Hades. And we're like, now we all get to play fucking Spirit Fair.
Should have done it. You done goofed.
So the last game that you have been playing is the Unexplored 2 beta by Ludomotion. Did you get into the beta because you actually backed it on Fig?
No.
Or is this just something they're offering?
No, this was just something they were offering for a while. It was like part of a mailing list. I joined and got a key which is also on Epic. But basically it was like a 2-week timed period where you can jump in and try it out. They added some new features from apparently they had done this a few weeks back or something like that. I'm not going to talk too much on it other than saying that I'm very excited to see what comes of this game once it's out of this beta phase, because it actually was pretty fun, and I think some of the mechanics in there are something to be desired. My one problem, and why I won't talk too much about this, is just it kept crashing on me. So I was like, well,
oh, that blows.
Yeah, it kind of sucked. I would get like an hour into it. Like, it happened to me twice, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to wait until maybe the next beta phase or that it actually comes out. But a lot of it, those are things that can be patched and fixed. But like, a lot of it I really did enjoy, because you're able to create your own character. There's different classes. There's different like skill sets that you can put in that will help you out, that will be specific to the play style that you want. And then there's also this kind of like Dungeons and Dragons-esque roll for initiative type system with a lot of different just interactions in the world. So like, anytime you're doing something that's like, oh, I need to climb this wall, or I need to talk to this individual, you'll have these rolls where it's like this pool of like check marks and X's. So it's not like an official like 1 to 20 kind of a thing, but it's basically just this kind of like a gambling system where you're trying to get a success. You have a certain amount of rolls, and then there's like, you could double it or nothing, because you might get a improved success or an improved failure. And like, it just, there's a lot of mechanics in it that I find very interesting. I like the fact that you have this this kind of like, you have to rest at like, depending on the day, to level up your character and to gain new skills and abilities, and that there's a traveling system where it seems very roguelike-esque of having random encounters based on your travels to a certain area. And so it'll be like, oh, I'm on this map and I'm traveling around, and then when I hit like a specific bubble, like a section, it'll throw me into a generated world. I don't know if it's always randomized or if it's like, I don't know too much, just because I didn't get too much time into it since it had crashed. But I like the way the system works of throwing you into a specific section once you hit that event, and then you have to like either kill certain enemies, or you have to talk to people, or like avoid them altogether. So it's like you can kind of play the way you want if you want to do it passively in that regards. But I don't know, I'm excited for it. That's really all I wanted to say. I hope that the crashing thing gets fixed, but otherwise I'm looking forward to,
I hope it's playable.
Because I am excited for it when it does come out.
Dude, it looks so cool. Looking back on it now, I really wish I would have like backed it on Fig, because I just like, it looks really, really interesting, and I love the character art and stuff like that. Like the mushroom people, I think look really cool. But yeah, I guess I'll just have to wait to play with all the rest of the plebes like myself when it actually releases.
I guess so.
For me, the game that I've been playing is Ashen by A44. It's a, depending on how you take it, it's an indie Souls-like game. It's developed by A44, and I believe it is published by Annapurna. So, yeah, the whole definition of indie thing just comes up whenever you want. Just whatever, dude. It's all loose. Who gives a shit?
They're all everything's an indie game.
Yeah, who gives a crap? Fuck yeah, indie games are everything. So Ashen is actually kind of interesting. Okay. I didn't play a massive amount of it. I purchased it over on the Epic Game Store. Yeah, it's just freaking giving him cash.
Shit.
I spent like $3 on it. Cause
wow, $3 fucking dollars. Whew.
Yeah.
Don't break the bank now.
But it's a Souls-like game. Okay. But it does have a few notable changes that I think are a little bit, I don't want to say off-putting, but they are very different. Like, I've played a decent amount of Souls-like games, and most of them, like, co-op is an option. I typically never do co-op because it also leaves you open for, like, getting invaded, and I fucking hate it. I hate getting invaded. I hate PvP. It sucks. It eats shit. Ashen kind of takes, like, an interesting co-op stance where it's very similar to Journey, where in Ashen, you always have somebody with you. You always have a companion. But from what I understand, in Ashen, that can actually, like, if you want to play online, it can at times be AI, and it can at times be an entirely other person. They can just pop into your world and play with you. And I think that's really cool. I have yet to have that happen yet, but doing some research on it, I've heard that it's kind of like a crazy experience to have. But having the co-op companion, it's very weird because the way I play a Souls-like game, I'm much more slow. I'm not very fast-paced. I take things at my own leisure, as people who watched my stream last night could see.
Right.
I don't
you
exactly just like
explode barrels that don't need
shit.
you.
Dude, that shit was so scary.
This guy.
You didn't even get to see me die in the end. It was the most uncomfortable death.
I know. I wish I had more time last night.
I got knocked off a bridge by a Ninja Turtle and I died.
Oh, hilarious.
It fucking sucked. But I play very slowly and methodically. I play with shields, so I just kind of stay back and I wait for an opening and then I strike. In Ashen, since you have this co-op, like you have this companion all the time, they are very aggressive, where they just like hop in and start beating the shit out of people. And I'm like, whoa, dude, and I don't want them to die or get knocked down. So then I have to run in and I'm just like, hold up, like fucking cool, chill, dude.
Damn.
And it's very weird because I don't know how to feel necessarily about it, having only played a little bit. There are a few things I love about it. I really love the art style. I think it's awesome. I love that you can get spears and throw them. That sounds really stupid, but I think it's really cool that you actually have thrown items and you have to aim them. I think it's really dope. This was a weird thing to do, but whatever, dude.
Oh, yeah. Aim it, baby.
But I do really like it, and its weapon system is kind of interesting, where you essentially have like both a one-handed and two-handed weapon, whereas in like Dark Souls, you essentially have like a lot of one-handed weapons that you can choose to use two-handed, or two-handed weapons that you can choose to use one-handed. They just swing slower. But in Ashen, you have both. so you could just switch in and out as much as you want. You have a specific slot for each one. It's really interesting. Of course, like if you use a two-handed weapon, you can't use a shield. So far, I am enjoying it. The art style is easily the biggest thing that I enjoy about it. It's very minimalist, and I don't know how to relate the character designs because they don't necessarily have faces. Their accentuation is based on like facial hair, if they have it. Otherwise, it's just kind of their hair. And their limbs come to like weird points where they're very like, they kind of look very thick and then they come to a point. It's very odd. It's kind of like a thing that you have to look at it to actually understand what I'm talking about.
Right.
But it's a very interesting art style that I like a lot. I'm going to be playing more just when I have the time to do so. Since I am now going to be streaming, maybe I'll set up a stream schedule. I don't know. Like, I'll be able to change my work schedule soon, so it'll make it a lot easier to actually do a streaming schedule. As of recording this, I think tonight I'll probably play some more Dark Souls 2 and maybe play some Ashen. I don't really know. Just play some more Souls-likes, but it's a lot of fun. It's cool. I have yet to actually get what would be the equivalent of an Estus flask, which is like this ceremonial gourd that you drink out of. Instead, I'm just using what would be the equivalent of like a life gem and just like using random materials. I have died. It was like, this game is difficult, so that's kind of nice that it's not just like an easy Souls-like. I enjoy it. I'm going to say that right now. I very much enjoy it. I think it's a fun game to play, and I'm excited to play more. Just the biggest detractor for me is honestly the co-op companion always being there. And them like really changing up my gameplay style is so odd. It's very much the same reason why like I love the Dark Souls games, but Sekiro and Bloodborne are kind of like my Achilles heel when it comes to those, because they force you to play the way the way they want you to play versus you choosing how to play. Because like they don't have shields. Like I don't get to play my slow methodical standpoint. Instead, it's very fast paced. Right. Ashen kind of forces me into that with this fucking AI companion where they're just like, and I'm just like, no, stop.
And you're sure there's no way to like change the settings to be like, you know how in some games you'll have that ability to be like more passive or more, I don't know.
You can set them to passive and defensive. It's very possible that I can. I haven't messed around with it a lot. I know you can turn off. You can turn off AI, or you can turn off the actual like people playing them. You can turn off co-op. So I know you can do that. I haven't messed with the settings to see if I can change their like kind of characteristics. Plus, you can actually get different companions down the road. You don't have to play with the same one all the time. Yeah. So it's possible that they just have like different play styles depending on which one you choose. Right. So when I unlock those, maybe I'll eventually find out. But I think it's cool. Art style, easily the best thing for me. There's like giant ladies, and I'm like, what's that? It's cool. But other than that, yeah, gigantic waifus. Big fan. So that is the end of what we have been playing this week. It only went, like an hour. This is very quick.
I had too many things to talk about.
Nah, dude, it's all me with Taco Bell. So, seriously, dude, nacho fries, get your head out of your ass, Taco Bell. So, over on IGN, we've got Adam Bankhurst, and I'm going to be honest. I'm going to have to ask you about this because you're the smart person out of the two of us, because I don't understand this article, but we'll talk about it. Among Us reportedly had roughly 500 million monthly active users in November. Of course, written by Adam Bankhurst over on IGN. Check it out. So, Among Us was allegedly played by roughly 500 million players in November, making it by far the most popular game ever in terms of monthly players. As reported by Superdata, Among Us earnings figures are comparatively smaller than other titles with a similar amount of active players, considering it isn't heavily monetized. The PC version, which costs $5 US, was responsible for 64% of the revenue from August to November, despite only accounting for 3% of the player base. And that's kind of what I'm not understanding. So, to give a little bit of added context, it's like Superdata also revealed that the launch of World of Warcraft Shadowlands led to the highest monthly revenue for an MMO since 2008. So it seems like it's taking into account like when it's talking about the the earnings figures are comparatively smaller than other titles. Like, it seems like it's taking the other titles would be like World of Warcraft and Assassin's Creed Valhalla into account, which makes sense because I believe Shadowlands is like $40 to $50 and Valhalla is like 60 to 70. So obviously, I mean,
Yeah.
they have similar player counts, but they're just like, oh yeah, like they had very similar player counts, but somehow they made more money. It's like, no fucking shit, they made more money. They cost more money. What do you mean?
Yeah, I think that's just the small comparison they're trying to make, is that like, even though it is such a large number of people, they're really not like, because most people would see this and be like, oh, Among Us they must be rolling in the dough, right? They're fucking rich. Look at all these people who are playing the game, and it's like, well, hold on. It's only $5 on like all platforms, and then on mobile it's free. So it's like,
Is it really?
I'm pretty sure mobile is free. Yeah.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, because it's like for the Switch and for PC it's $5. I'm pretty sure you could just download it on mobile.
Yeah, and it's coming to Game Pass soon too.
Yup.
Actually, no, it is on Game Pass. I'm fairly certain. I think it was added just a couple weeks ago. I think I saw it on PC Game Pass.
Yeah, I believe it's only for PC though, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah. It might not actually be on the console, but it is on Game Pass.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one's just so weird to me. Like, I mean, I think it's awesome that they had almost 1 billion players in November. I do have to ask. I feel like, once again, this is just kind of like, this is me being a little chapped little bitch boy. But am I the only one who finds it actually kind of annoying that larger sites are only covering this now? Like, they didn't I'm not saying that we did. We didn't cover it like in 2018 to 2020 kind of a thing.
Right.
But IGN reviewed this a couple months ago, and it was like not on their radar until everyone was playing it, and then they're like, why not review it? I find that really odd. It seems like a weird cash grab moment, which, I mean, is just a thing. I'm just kind of like shooting from the hip here. It doesn't necessarily bother me, and I'm not saying it's sketchy in any way, because they have to make money as a website.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that indie games are getting more of a shout out. But it kind of seems, I don't know. It kind of seems like they're basically just using it for clicks versus actually like getting the word out about indie games, because they don't often review them unless they're really popular, and then it's just like,
yeah. Well, I think the problem with that, and like, so I can understand some of that, because on the one hand, you could say indie games are important and you have to talk about them, which is true. But on the other hand, you could say, okay, well, IGN has how many people, and there's how many games that come out every day. Like, it's tough, because the whole problem is, IGN or a Polygon or a GameSpot,
dude, that one is actually really hard. I often call it the wrong thing.
Always call it the wrong thing. They're a business. They have to run based on some type of like, we're doing this, we're putting time into a salaried or a contracted, employee, because we want to obviously get some kind of returns. We want those clicks. We want, traffic into our
have
site
to make money.
Yeah, like and it sucks, because like, I'd love for us to be able to say like, well, no, they should just cover everything, because then, we'd have more coverage, kind of a thing. But it's like, it's a bigger problem that, yes, I think there should be more insight into, but it's one of those things where it's like, because it's so big, IGN has to do it now, right? But if this never blew up, probably wouldn't be talking about it at all, And that's just kind of like, that's the it's the unfortunate, but it's just how things are. Like, I think that there's always going to be specific people like us or moments where a game creeps in to their radar, even though it might not be there. But I don't think that's ever going to be the norm, unfortunately, and that's just because there's just so much out there, right?
Yeah, I guess I'm just kind of like falling into that weird, like, oh, they should do things based on like what's good instead of what's like,
but it's hard to know what's good.
Instead of making money. Yeah. I mean, what's good, like, this sounds bad, like not morally good, but just like, oh, kind of like, I guess, altruism in a sense, like shedding light on indies, kind of like what we try to do here, but they also have to worry about making money, whereas we have the luxury of not.
Yeah.
Like, we just get to do whatever we want. So yeah, I definitely am coming at this from a weird angle. I just found that kind of weird that they were like, yeah, we have an Among Us review. And I'm like, game came out 2 years ago, and now you're talking about it because it's got 1 billion players?
Sounds popular.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but I don't necessarily blame them. I'm just being an idiot, kind of like shooting from the hip here, being dumb. So, yeah, I think it's amazing. They got 1 million players. Super weird the way they like put this in here, where it's like responsible for 64% of revenue from August to November, despite only accounting for 3% of the player base. What?
Yeah, I mean, they were probably on mobile, and that they don't need to pay money there. So
yeah. It's really odd, but let's talk about one that's also pretty weird. So this one is over on Twinfinite. It is written by, oh my god, this pop-up just blocked their name. Go away, pop-up.
Giuseppe Nelva.
Yes, Giuseppe Nelva. Literally the second I opened it and looked at the name, it was like, ha and just like put a pop-up over it. So Giuseppe Nelva wrote, since a Cyberpunk Ghost Story publisher categorically refuses censorship ahead of console release. Today, publisher Top Hat Studio released a statement on Twitter regarding demands for censorship of the cyberpunk horror game Since a Cyberpunk Ghost Story. The game, developed by Sozaku, has already released for PC via Steam, and it's currently 25% off. I don't know if that's going to continue. It is about to launch on Switch on January 7th. PlayStation 4 and PS Vita versions are also coming, and Xbox One launch is planned on top of those. Apparently, the upcoming console launch has sparked comments from some demanding censorship of the developer's art style. Top Hat Studios' statement categorically refuses the option of censoring the game, pledging that it will be released as is. The publisher also reiterates its principles based on not tampering with a creator's artistic expression. So, did you happen to read this, like the actual like press release that they put out?
Are you talking about the giant like statement?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The giant statement is kind of interesting. And it's really small on my screen right now, so I have to like make it bigger. So I don't think I'm going to go through the entire thing because it's actually really big, but I do think it's pretty noteworthy. Yeah. So so Top Hat Studios Inc. put this out on Twitter. It's an official statement regarding the demands of censorship of Since a Cyberpunk Story. They say, with the recent news of Since a Cyberpunk Story coming to the Nintendo Switch, we are aware of a large amount of messages and demands aimed toward the game's console platform release based on lies, claims that it's illicitly pornographic or somehow encourages violence, or most ridiculously somehow breaks the law. I really love how often people bring up like breaking the law. Like when I worked at GameStop, I had a guy who like tried to trade in a console. He was like, I want to trade this to you. You hold on to it and I'm going to come back and buy it in a couple days. And he's like, please don't erase anything. Don't sell it. I'm going to come back and I'm going to get it back. And I'm like, one, you're literally talking about pawning it.
Yeah.
And we don't do that. And two, I was like, I can't do that. If I take it, I have to like clear the memory. And he's like, what are you talking about? He's like, this is like borderline breaking the law. And I'm like, in what way am I breaking the law?
Nope.
What?
Just
it's
following
so interesting how much
sir.
people, yeah, they think these laws exist, or people who are like, I'll call the Better Business Bureau. And I'm like, and what exactly do you think they're going to do? Like, I don't understand.
Ridiculous.
But furthermore, voices have attempted to advocate making sale of the game untenable through demanding harsh censorship aimed towards the developer's art style, with threats to review bomb the game or harass its distributors. In addition, we have received death threats from those who feel threatened by what is essentially boils down to an atmospheric decision of how pixels are arranged on a screen. While disappointing at these behaviors, we are certainly not surprised. Let us be clear on this. We will not censor this game because of self-centered crowds who are solely about grandstanding. We categorically and absolutely refused to restrict creative expression. Creators should be allowed the freedom to express themselves, particularly when it is an expression of the subcultures they have been immersed in. As a cyberpunk game, Sense uses imagery and themes related to the future of a hyper-commercialized, commodified imagery as part of its cyberpunk theme and inspiration. This is reflected in all character designs. With that said, we expect that it is lost on those attacking the developers for being harmful. I love that that's in quotes. Harmful and somehow inflicting violence and pain to those who believe words or images inflict violence should perhaps stop spurting their own hateful, false rhetoric and also cease condoning death threats to those who they disagree with. That's as far as I'm going to go, but damn, get dunked on, dude.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
Yeah, it's so funny because, like, man, it is so far and few between that you would ever see an official statement from a company that has this much just the balls to just be like,
salt.
Yeah, like, no, go fuck yourself. Like, we're doing what we want. And granted, like, here's the thing that's weird is even if they have certain things in there, like what they're talking about, which, come on, why would they? This game
has got big boobs.
It's rated mature. Like,
yeah.
It's literally, there is an organization, the ESRB, that does this specific thing of going through a game and finding out what it needs to be rated based on whatever. And it's given that title, and for that, it got mature, and so that's what it is. And it's like, they're not telling you, even if it did tell people to inflict violence, whatever, it's only accessible, or should only be accessible, to people who are above a certain age, who might, be more in the mindset of understanding that, like, hey, it's a game. Like, it's a game. Like, you don't need to start attacking people because some anime chick has nice big titties. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, it's really weird. It's just like the entire idea of video games making people violent.
I hate that notion.
It's just dumb in general, but also the fact that they're like, yeah, my kid plays Grand Theft Auto, and you're like, why? It's a 17 or older game. That's your problem, not the people who made the game. They specifically say, hey, if you're younger than 17, don't play this fucking game. Yeah. Like, it's so weird, and this one is so odd, especially because no one had a problem with it. Like, nobody has a problem with it on PC or the possibility of it coming to PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Vita. Seemingly the only people who are writing in are because it's coming to the Nintendo Switch.
Right.
And it's like, I get that it's a family console and everything, but this isn't the first, like, Bayonetta is on those systems. Like, I'm not saying Bayonetta's, like, bad or anything, it's just provocative.
Right.
And I think it absolutely deserves to be. Like, create what you want to create. But it's just so weird to me that somebody's just like, nah, dude, this is going to hurt my children's minds. It's like, then don't let them play it.
Yeah, like, I don't understand this argument of, like, if you're worried that things are out there in the world, like, there's so many other avenues that they can go to for the same exact content. Like, this game is not the first of its kind to be something that has, an over-sexualized character or dangerous content, whatever that means. Like, this shit's out there. Like, it is your job as a parent to keep them away from it if it really affects you in that way and you don't want your child to see it. And if you are older and are offended by that, then have the common, like, knowledge to just not fucking play it.
Yeah. It's all weird. I'm excited though. I'm super happy that Top Hat was just like, no, I'm not gonna censor this fucking game. Like, why would we do that just because it's coming to the Nintendo Switch? Like, that's fucking dumb.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome that they did that. They're sticking to their guns. I also think it's awesome that they pointed out the hypocrisy in being like, your game is harmful for absolutely, just showing titties, but the people that are literally sending you death threats that are like, we're gonna kill you, that's like that's just justice, if anything. Like, I very much enjoy that. kudos to you, Top Hat. You're great. Until we find out that you're a dick, and then we'll probably turn on you. Just letting you
Well,
know.
that's how it works, right?
It's the
I
way
mean,
this-
yeah.
it's the way everything works.
It's funny though, because like the irony on this is this game, like I'd never heard this game before. I never would have heard
We've
this
talked
game.
about it a few times.
I don't remember
Yeah.
it at all. So clearly it's not as memorable. But now I kind of want to play it because I want to just see like what's the big deal.
Let's see
you know?
what's up. Yeah, you're like, let's see this violence, dude.
Yeah.
Let's fucking do it. Yeah, it's kind of like it's people not understanding that getting angry about it is actually basically advertising for the
Yeah,
game. They're
this
just
is a
like free
huge-
advertisement, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
So many people now know about the game because they were so
Yeah.
mad. Like could have just been
It's
quiet.
very similar to like Devotion. I don't think
Yeah.
Devotion would be as big of a deal if it hasn't gone through all of this shit.
Yeah.
Like, Devotion is going to become the next PT that people buy, like, fucking PCs for thousands of dollars that just have
Just have
Devotion
it?
on it.
Yeah.
Like, they're not even good PCs. They're just, yeah. All because of that. So, our last news story over on Nintendo Life, written by Liam Doolin. It's good to see you live, Liam.
Shit!
Good to
He's
see.
back!
So glad. So, Liam Doolin writes, Random Edge Magazine is teasing a world exclusive. So, this one, it's less of a news story and just more of let's talk about the few tidbits of knowledge we're getting from this coverage on Hollow Knight Silksong. So, over on Edge Magazine, they spotlighted Hollow Knight Silksong, and it is now available. There's just a couple of things that were taken from this as highlights, and I think some of them are weird as inclusions. So you'll see in just a second why I say that.
Okay.
So Team Cherry's next game will not be Hollow Knight related. So I'm assuming that means after they put out Silksong, they're going to go into something else. Very similar to like Image and Form. They're moving on from just SteamWorld. They're making
That gunk.
I believe it's like, yeah, the gunk. And then we've got like Moon Studios. They're not doing Ori again.
Right.
They're doing a like human-esque game, I guess. So that's cool. I'm glad. I'm excited to see how they work in a different medium that's not Little Bug Boys, even though I'm a big fan of Little Bug Boys. Second, Team Cherry, they like Castlevania Lords of Shadow. Okay. That's
I
a
mean,
weird inclusion.
could you have not guessed that they like Castlevania or Metroid games?
I mean, I think it's interesting that they specifically point out that they like Lords of Shadow because, like, the only reason that that's interesting is because people often hate it. Like, this game is based on... The idea of Metroidvanias are based on, like, early Metroid games and Castlevania Symphony of the Night, specifically.
Mm-hmm.
But Lords of Shadows, a lot of people believe is, like, some sort of bastardization of the Castlevania series. So they're just like, we like Lords of Shadows.
So like, oh, hot
I
damn.
think it's kind of weird. Hornet will have the ability to reform tasks.
Perform.
Perform, not reform. Just fuck that up. Perform tasks for NPCs. Keep track of tasks you've completed through notice boards around Farloom. Not replacing organic quest lines from the first Hollow Knight. Instead of reoccurring grubs from jars, now you rescue fleas that get themselves into little scraps. Hornet's chests... Yeah, crests. Sorry, not chests.
I was like, whoa.
I was like,
They're
hold
about
on.
to get some of those death threats.
Yeah. They're like, why you bug got fat titties? What's up with this? Hornet's crests are fully customizable and can be easily changed to reflect the gameplay style. So just like in Hollow Knight. Trying to create a game that's accessible to new players, but also matches difficulties of the difficulty of the original game. I think that's cool. I'm excited to see the accessibility features that they offer.
Right.
Similar to like, I hope it has similar to like the creativity that went into like Hades' God mode. I think that's pretty cool. Or like Celeste's accessibility functions. I think that's really cool. Tricks such as string shards, pim pillow bombs, straight pins can be crafted at benches from shards gathered through from defeated enemies. I think that's pretty cool that you can create these tools. And then we've got the objective of the game is to climb to the Citadel, but there will be many other lands. Cool. Hollow Knight composer Christopher Larkin returns. Start off the game having lost many of your powers, basically just a staple for Metroidvanias.
Yeah.
It's basically what happens. And then the PC and Switch It's only going to be on those two platforms as of launch, and there's no release date. See, my problem with this is that all over, people are like, wow, I can't believe we finally got Silksong news. Oh my god, like, it's so cool we got Silksong news. And I was so excited to see what the fucking Silksong news was. And then I finally find an article that talks about it, and it's just not, it's like, okay, it's basically gonna be Hollow Knight, but with
different.
extra things. Yeah, no way. Oh my god, like, yeah, it's gonna be awesome. Ooh, it's fucking annoying. I hate it. I just totally got baited. I was so annoyed when I first hopped on it. The two really cool things, I'm excited to see what Team Cherry works on after Hollow Knight Silksong, just to see how their art style changes when they're not working with Hollow Knight.
Right.
Like if they kind of like change it, if they are going to work with more human-esque characters, I think that'll be cool, and how their art style works with that, or if they're going to do something entirely different. I'm excited to see how that goes.
I'd be tired of bugs after so many years of this.
See, here's the thing though, if they just added fat titties, like,
shit.
That's
Her
how they gotta
chest
change
will
it.
become
It's like,
customizable.
yeah, dude, the next game will not be Hollow Knight. That's true, because it's gonna be like Hollow Knight with titties.
Oh shit.
It's gonna be great. It's gonna be sweet.
Everybody loves
and then
titty
the PC and Switch only at launch, I think that's kind of cool. I mean, obviously you'd launch on the PC and Switch because that's where I would say indies are most reliably played, and those
Yeah.
are like the biggest platforms for indies.
Yeah.
That just checks out. Like, I know people play them on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, but I feel like it's much more likely if you release a game on PC and Switch, people are going to play it.
Yeah.
Like, if it's an indie game. It just makes sense. So anything out of this that really, like, blows you away, okay, I guess there's a few other things, like Hornet can actually travel faster, so the gameplay mechanics are going to be a little bit different. It's going to feel different than with
Right.
the Knight and Hollow Knight, because she's much more agile, she can leap faster, or she can leap higher, she can move faster, so... I mean, which should have been obvious considering she totally trounces you like all the time in Hollow Knight. But also, they had to change the actual like level design to accommodate that, which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
So it's going to be much different in Hollow Knight Silksong than it was in Hollow Knight. And the characters in the game will actually kind of... they will interact with you in a different way because of this, like, being able to mantle and climb and like shoot through the air. They have to be able to essentially track you for the most part.
Right.
So they won't be as simple as they were in Hollow Knight for the most part, if you consider that like their attack pattern's simple, which they were pretty fucking outrageous. But like, it's cool to know that they're changing that a little bit.
Yeah.
So anything in this that you're excited about that you didn't get baited on?
I mean, I'm very excited about this game, but I've had the same kind of mentality of just like, when it's ready, I'll play it. Like when it's actually out, like I'm excited in the fact that like, oh, more news means it's probably getting closer to the date, but like I don't really care about the news. I'll just when it shows up, I'll be excited to play it, kind of a thing. Like I do think that the interesting part about this is really the changing the level design, changing the characters to fit a totally new just character in general. I think that that becomes very challenging because, as you said, it'll probably be less simple, which means trying to then consider accessibility becomes even harder. So I'm very interested to see what the actual gameplay, like how much of a difference it is to play between the two characters, and then what their accessibility options are. I probably won't ever use them, but just I'd be interested to see what they are.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see what they are, especially considering like just what we've seen in the past for accessibility options. It's always cool to just see how people are trying to change shit up, like how creative they are, even though I'm not going to personally use them, with the exception of like Hades' God mode,
right,
because I suck at video games. Which was a very clever way to do that. I just have to say one more time. That's why it got like, what was it? Number 2 on my list.
It was 2.
It was because it's that God mode, dude. It was very creative.
This boy doesn't even remember his list a week later.
No, once again, my memory is just not good. It's not. I can barely remember anything. I must have like brain damage or something.
Maybe.
So now that we have covered all our news stories, it is time for us to hop into News Cram.
Cram time. or whatever.
Yeah, just gonna
Have
do
you
the fun
figured
stuff
out what
there.
to do for that yet?
Nah, dude, just fucking roll it off the
Just
cup.
fucking-
Woohoo!
Woohoo!
News Cram is our weekly wrap-up segment where we, the hosts of IndiePod and Indie Games Podcast, cram you full of all sorts of indie games news. This week, we will be will be covering a quick news story as well as a bunch of new stuff. So, our first and only item in the news stories is actually reported by Nintendo Life. Over there, they talk about how Devolver Digital is possibly teasing 5 games that are to be announced sometime in 2021. This is because Devolver Digital, in typically Devolver fashion, tweeted out, "Hey, what 5 unannounced games are you most excited for like Devolver Digital 2021?" And I was like, great way to reveal that. They're just like, what games have we not talked about that you're most excited about? So I'm excited to see the 5 games. Like, Devolver they partner with a lot of like really interesting creatives, so I'm interested to see what happens. Now on to some new stuff. Our first 4 items of new stuff come by way of Nintendo Life, where it's reported that survival horror game Sense, a Cyberpunk Ghost Story by Suzaku, is headed to the Nintendo Switch on January 7th, 2021. That Metroidvania Bloodstained Ritual of the Night is set to receive a new classic mode update that will allow players to play the game as if it were 1986 Castlevania, which is set to release sometime in January.
How well do you think that'll run on the Switch?
I would assume good.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean,
they were like, we can't fix the
cross my
Switch,
fingers.
so we just made this mode that just graphics
Exactly.
don't matter.
It's what you hope for. So that platform brawler, Indie Pogo by Low Bros Studios LLC, just announced that they've started development on their Nintendo Switch port of the game. That is like, I think that's so weird that they announced that.
Yeah.
And sadly, that has no release date. But obviously, considering they just started it. But for those who want some new Indie Pogo content sooner, then you've got Super Meat Boy, or Meat Boy specifically, is about to join the fight sometime this January over on Indie Pogo. So that's pretty exciting. And lastly, that Roguevania Dead Cells by Motion Twin and Evil Empire is set to receive its Malaise update on console versions of the game sometime in January as well, which includes new mutations, a new backpack rework, Malaise rework, and much more. And to round out the group, over on Polygon, it is reported that Stardew Valley's 1.5 update is finally here. Finally, I won't have to see fucking news stories about this like all the time, being like, hey, it might be coming soon. So annoying. It's finally here, and we've got a slew of endgame content, a new world, new NPCs, and much more. Sadly, actually just fucking kidding, I'm still gonna see this bullshit, because sadly, this 1.5 update is only available for those playing the game on PC with a vague console release date of sometime next year. So I can't wait to see every fucking week people being like, maybe it'll come out in the next week. Maybe.
Who knows?
Maybe it'll come to consoles. I fucking hate it.
Maybe.
Literally the most annoying articles I've ever seen.
Maybe it just won't come. Who knows?
Cross your fingers. So now it is time to hop into God Bless the Crowd, because of course we've been blessed with so many amazing indie game news stories that we got to get back to the creators in God Bless the Crowd. This week we are headed over to Kickstarter, where the biggest survivors Josh Boyce has found a game called Vomitoreum. It's an FPS Metroidvania with a focus on atmosphere and horror, inspired by the paintings of because I don't know how to say this guy's fucking
Close
name.
enough.
That's
close enough.
That's a very interesting name you got there. It's like Zdzisław Beksiński, maybe. I don't fucking know. That was crazy.
I picked this one just so you could say that.
I would not be surprised if you're just like, the Vomitoreum thing might get him, but you know what? Yeah, you just like really got in on that. So, Josh, tell me your impressions of Vomitoreum.
Yeah, so before I do, quick just synopsis of what it is, their overview. It is described as a dark and arid hellscape inspired by the likes of Metroid Prime and Dark Souls. It is a first-person shooter / Metroidvania, which I think is a cool idea. Like, I generally don't see, and granted, you know, there's first-person shooters and they're like story games, but not like heavily marketed as a Metroidvania, which I think is an interesting way to put it. I'm just assuming more of like Metroid type game, like the Metroid, the first person shooter Metroid games. I think it's interesting because the art style is very old, like classic Doom or Duke Nukem, which unfortunately, this is one of the things that we mentioned before the show and we started recording. I really like that style. I have a lot of nostalgia for it, but just for some reason, ever since I hit like 28 or so, like a couple of years ago, I just
Your
can't.
eyes are getting old.
I can't look at this, man. I can't. I'm watching the video of them playing and moving, and it's like it's really fast and like it makes me nauseous. Like
I could see how it would be a bit jarring. It's also, I feel like it's also because like I feel like our eyes get used to running at 60 frames per second kind of a thing. Like we now have games that are constantly moving so quickly, and now we have these older, very retro inspired games that move much slower in a much more janky way, and your eyes just haven't adjusted to it, so you're like, ah.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know what it is, but Vomitoreum is definitely a fitting name for me if I played this game.
Yeah, you gotta wonder if that's what they went for. I did forget to say, of course, their goal is $6,000. At the time of this recording, they have $5,768 with 260 backers and 27 days left to go, and this is developed by Scumhead, or at least that's the people who posted it on Kickstarter. Yeah. So, yeah, now you can tell me your thoughts on Vomitoreum, other than the fact that it's going to make you vomit.
I mean, I really do like the idea behind it because I like that you're gaining these abilities. There seems to be like, which they're all very strange, other than the very normal one of like double jump. But everything else is like turn into a fetus and squeeze into tight places. And you're like, what the fuck? Like,
which is actually kind of like, I would say, a normal ability for what would be like a Metroidvania is just getting smaller.
Is turn
like,
into
yeah,
a
that
ball
totally makes
and
sense.
Roll, but like
the idea of turning into like a lumpy fetus, the fetal soul thing is so weird and gross. Like,
very gross.
I feel like it definitely adds to the actual feeling of this game being disgusting.
Right. But like I like looking at it when it's not moving, I like what I'm seeing, kind of a thing. It's just I can't play these type of games, so I'm a bad judge of this being good or bad. But like from what I can see, I love the fact that there are forms of progression in the abilities, the different guns that you have, the different beasts that you seem to be fighting. Like I'm interested in the idea of it, and the world around looks very gross, but enticing in a way where you're like, I kind of want to see what this is all about. But yeah, it's just like, for me personally, like I wish I could, but I just can't, kind of a thing. I would just be sick to my stomach.
For me, I think this game looks really, really cool. I love the close-up pixel art of your like character's arm and the gun and everything. That's easily my favorite. Like, a lot of the other stuff I could kind of deal without, just because I feel like it looks messy, but it looks messy on purpose, which I enjoy. It's just not my jam. Yeah. But I love the close-up pixel art. I think it looks really, really good. My biggest critique of this is that in a way, there is too much gameplay and not enough gameplay, where there's too much just standard gameplay of you going around and shooting when this is touted as a FPS Metroidvania, where it seems like they're very heavily leaning into the FPS version of this, where it's like, I totally get it. Yeah, you want people to feel that like kind of Doom-esque nature of the game, but then in the same vein, it's a Metroidvania as well, and they barely showcase that in the trailer. And then, like, down where they do explain the fetal soul, it's like, yeah, I get that one, like, squeezing into tight places. I mean, I feel like it could be represented a little bit better, where it could show, you know, a place that actually mattered, other than you, like, just shooting up to this wall and then moving back. Like, it's a very weird way to represent that.
Yeah.
But then there's, like, the light homunculus that seems cool, but in the little snippet that we see them using it, it's like,
what did that do?
Why did you need that? What is it doing? It's barely shedding light on a pretty well lit room. Like, I don't understand why I should be stoked about this ability. Like, it's cool. I think the little light homunculus is cool, and I like that it's kind of a traditional ability that, like, it literally existed in Ori and the Will of the Wisps. This was an ability that you got, was to shed light so you wouldn't die. And I like that it's kind of a cool twist on that, but also I feel like just the way that they are showing this is like, but when would I use that? Because it is not like you are not showcasing this ability very well in this moment. The double jump is pretty obvious, even though I feel like it's also not very well utilized. And then the embryonic battery, that one just kind of seems like an Estus Flasco, like a healing item. I totally get it. Like that one's pretty easy to understand. But overall, I think the world looks really, really cool. I like the weird kind of contrast between what is like the closer you get to the camera, the better things look. But the inverse is also true, where like the gun looks really good, but the environment looks a little messy. And then when you go even further than that, what's in the distance looks even worse.
Right.
I think that's very interesting, and it's kind of a cool way to play with perspective. I actually really like that. Overall, I think the game looks actually really, really cool. I like the idea of Metroidvania elements in this because, like, I probably wasn't going to play BPM, even though I think it looks really cool because, like, I'm just not good at rhythm games.
It's tough.
Yeah, I thought Hellstorm was really cool, but I don't like I like straight up shooters, but there is an additional element that I need. So a Metroidvania element is possibly what I need to play the game, but I feel like this Kickstarter just doesn't do those elements justice. Like, I just don't understand why you'd need Metroidvania elements in this game. Like, I just don't want it to feel tacked on.
Yeah,
it's just
I
something
gotcha.
that's there instead of being like a major focus of this game. But as an idea, a Metroidvania shooter, like you said, sounds really, really cool.
Right. It's something that I don't personally think of ever for the most part, other than the actual Metroid games from back in the day. I think if you're a fan of this genre, you're probably going to love this game. Like, it's probably worth it for you. It's also like the tiers I think are really cool. We didn't really talk about them, but they're the lowest tiers for getting actual physical goodies that I've seen in a long time.
Really? I didn't see that.
So it's $10 for the game, just flat out, if you just want the digital copy. And then
I think it's also really cool that you can get it on itch.io also.
Right.
Like, you could choose to get it on Steam or itch. I think that's cool. I don't often see them offering it on itch.
Yeah. And then if you go for 20, they'll actually give you a comic, a PDF comic though, but it's like not physical, but a comic PDF telling the story of,
cool.
the background story of this world, which I think is really cool. But then you go to 25 and you get a cool pin and all that information. So like the same stuff, you still get the comic, you get a strategy guide, you get the game, and you get a pin. And then I think it's for 50 you get a poster as well as all of that stuff. So like that's pretty much all of their tiers, but still that's a lot lower. Usually when I see these, it's like $100 for a pin, and you're like, God damn, like I'm not gonna pay that much money for a pin. Like,
well, I mean, it's also like they had the $70 tier, which, I mean, granted, these are limited tiers, so it kind of makes sense that they're a little bit lower. But they had the Vomitoreum physical strategy guide plus comic for $70. You got all of that stuff, and you got this thick ass strategy guide that they offered.
Yeah,
like this is straight out of Prima. This thing looks big.
Yeah, so like there's a lot of cool things, and like I said, if you're into this genre, I think this is an obvious one for people. Like this old classic type of FPS shooter makes no sense. Shooter. But FPS games, like, you should probably check it out. And as far as like the Metroidvania aspects, I think maybe like to give them a bit more credit than we're giving, it might just be that the Kickstarter doesn't showcase those abilities as well.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's also not a ton shown in the Kickstarter, right? And that's the same, like, let's see, July 2021. So they still have time to work on this game, kind of a thing. That's probably they're just showing what they feel is the most fleshed out parts. So like, there's probably other areas that are going to improve on. It's more of a, like, I would say if you're a fan of the genre, as I've already mentioned, it's a for sure one. And then like, if you kind of think like the idea is cool, maybe check it out, I guess, or give them the backing.
I might. I mean, $10 is not that much,
right? It's not a lot
considering. Plus the fact that you could get it on itch, I think, is actually really cool, because then you don't have to go through a specific service. Like, itch just offers basically downloaded games.
Right.
Instead, where you just download them to your actual PC, which I think is really dope. I also frequently forget that I bought that fat ass bundle off itch, so I have a shitload of games that I just totally forgot about because they don't have a digital like storefront or anything like Steam does. So I don't have my library just easily accessible.
That's
so
why I like Steam better.
It both, both have their issues. Like, I hate that I always have to go through the Steam, like, every time I click on a game, it's like, why even have the desktop icon? Because you're going to force me to go to Steam to open it anyway.
Yeah.
But also, I forget what games I fucking own if I don't have that
nice little library.
But I think it's really cool. I might actually back this game. The $10 is pretty sweet. $25 to get a pin. I'm assuming that pin is of the weird like light homunculus. Probably, because that seems to be their like staple. But it is kind of a cool looking creature, so maybe I'll go shoot for that. But at the very least, $10 I think is pretty good for what the game has. So make sure to check out Vomitoreum over on Kickstarter if you are a fan of old school FPSs. So now it is time to pop into our audience questions, and boy, there are a lot of them. So I love that, like, Phil, he was like, have fun with your 3 hour. He's like, I'm going to have fun listening to this 3-hour episode.
I know.
When we had, like, missing probably, like, a good 5 of these questions. He didn't even know that the rest of these were there.
He knew they were coming.
Chris Penwell writes in and says, what kind of person were you in high school? Geek or a jock? I like how he only gives the two. Like, you get put into these two different categories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't get anything else.
If TV or movies have taught me anything, it's that there's only 2 categories: geeks and jocks. That's it.
Yeah.
Nobody else. So
definitely
did you
wasn't
fit
a jock.
into one of these binary things?
No, I definitely wasn't.
You weren't a jock, dude? I see those fat muskies you got there. What are you talking about?
Get out of here. No, I wasn't a jock. I don't think I was a geek either. I'm going to give like a weird, like, so I was really weird in high school. If you looked at me from the outside, you'd probably think I was like part of like the rocker stoner group. Just because I had really long hair. I wore what was known as trip pants back in the day, which are just really baggy pants with chains on them.
No way.
Yeah,
you
dude.
wore those?
I wore those. I was real big into them. I used to love those. They were so comfy, dude.
Those are so
comfy.
weird.
I know, they're so comfy. And then I always wore a pink Hello Kitty jacket because I thought it was funny that people would get so mad that I was wearing pink.
That's dope.
I loved it, dude.
I have a pink shirt now that I wear all the time, and every time my dad comments on it, like he's never seen it before, he's like, what's up with pink?
Yeah.
I'm like, it looks fucking dope.
Dude, I wear pink all the time. I love it. It looks so
great.
It looks
It's
so
great
good
color.
on me. And so I would wear this pink Hello Kitty jacket, and people would get so mad because they're like, are you gay? And I'm like, why? No, I'm not. What does that matter? And they're like, why are you wearing that Hello Kitty jacket? I was like, what? And I would just basically like I just thought it was hilarious that it pissed people off, and so I just kept doing it. So I had like all this dumb like Hello Kitty stuff because I was like, fuck all y'all. I don't know why. It made me laugh. So I wouldn't put myself in one of those buckets, but it depends on who like looking at me. You'd probably be like, that kid's fucking weird.
Yeah, I know a group you hung out with. So me, geek or jock? Nah, I was just a dick. Like, I was just a fucking asshole.
That makes sense.
I often talk about how I'm an asshole. I really just not a good person. In like
Checks
school
out.
and everything. Just a little piece of shit. I try to be better now, but not very good at it. So yeah, I don't know. Like, I kind of just had my group of friends and everything, and I just hung out with them. I'm pretty, like, I'm comfortable being a loner, so I would only hang out with like a couple people, and I would just kind of like go off and do my own thing or hang out with like a specific group. Just, yeah, I didn't really care. My senior year, I just basically hung out with my girlfriend because I just didn't give a shit about, like, I had switched school so many times that it just didn't matter anymore.
Right.
So yeah, I had some good groups of friends at other schools though that I really liked. Yeah, I was just I don't think I fit into any category neatly other than being a dick. I was just a fucking asshole. Just the biggest piece of shit you can imagine. I feel so bad about it now. I hate it so much. I wish it didn't exist.
Checks out.
So, Moving on. Yeah, I mean, if anybody would like me to get deeper and elaborate on that, feel free to write in more questions about it, because I was a little piece of shit, and I'm not afraid of talking about how big of a piece of shit I was. So, to lighten up the mood, number one Turner and Hooch fan writes in and says, do you mind telling me why Bigfoot doesn't also have big hands? Why didn't they just call him the Beast of Big? So, Josh, Bigfoot, does he have big hands? Why doesn't he have big hands? And why would they not just call him the Beast of Big?
I mean, if he's called Bigfoot, clearly his feet are bigger than his hands, and so they just went with that, you know? He's just got ginormous feet. You can't not see them, all right? Even if he has big hands, it doesn't matter because the size of his feet are just too big.
Do you ever wonder if Bigfoot actually was Bigfoot was actually the one who perpetuated the Bigfoot thing, because Bigfoot does not have big feet, just got huge hands. So instead, he's like trying to throw people off the trail. Everybody's looking for these
there's his feet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, everybody's looking for these gigantic feet, and he's chilling over here with like fucking like Hamburglar hands or the Grabbler. Like he's got these fat ass fucking hands that are like 20 times the size of like a human hand. Like I think that's what's up.
Maybe.
Dude. I think Bigfoot is fucking gaslighting the nation right now. And he's just like, everybody's looking for a Bigfoot, and then there's some hairy dude just chilling there with the biggest hands you've ever fucking seen.
It's like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's absolutely possible. I think that's why. Why don't we just call him the Beast of Big? You know, maybe he's a little sensitive about it. Maybe he does have actually like small hands, like really just abnormally small hands for his species of Yeti, and he just feels uncomfortable about it. So
it's true.
You know,
don't be rude.
Also, I mean, maybe he just needs to lean into it. Like he needs to be like the biggest Ravaged Josh boys. You know, he needs people to know. You know, so
yeah,
I still think he's just trying to throw people off the trail. You know,
I like it. I like the idea.
I mean, that would explain why nobody's been able to take a picture of him. Sure. Everybody's looking for a Bigfoot. He's like, haha, dumbass. I got fucking foot-long hands. You don't even know. So, moving on. Actually, I think a foot-long hand would not be that hard to do if you just measured from the bottom to the tip of your finger.
Yeah.
Let's go with like a foot-long finger, because that would be crazy. That would be fucking insane. So, Philip Brenshaw, the Wombat Emperor of Australia or Canada, depending on where you're looking, writes in and says, so a few days ago, my sexy partner, gotta love the humble brag there. He's like, just to let you know, my partner, she got it. So my sexy partner and myself were heading out to do grocery shopping when I let a giant fart rip, which smelled just atrocious. This fart distracted her enough to forget to get the keys before the door locked behind us, locking us outside with no way back in. About $100, and 90 minutes later, we were back inside the house. Did you not try to just crawl in a window? Am I the only one who, like, actually... I say that, but I'm so scared of home invasions. Every night, I check every window multiple times to make sure they're locked. So
you are so neurotic.
Even if you did, yeah. Yep. 2 questions. So he's got 2 questions. Firstly, who is at fault here? I love that he's like, seemingly he is trying to settle an argument with his girlfriend right now. She thinks it's his fault and he thinks it's her fault.
That's why he said sexy. He's just trying to make it like
he's buttering her up.
Yeah, just stack all that. My sexy partner and I.
Wink, wink. He's like, see, I was being nice.
Yeah.
Like, me for letting out a hilarious fart, or my partner for not grabbing the keys as she locked the door behind us because she was distracted by said hilarious fart. So, Josh, first question, who was at fault? Him or her?
Easy. She's at fault.
Yeah, she's the one who didn't grab the keys, dude.
Easy game.
Has she never heard a fart before?
Look,
like, it seems like this is something you do.
If she's been with him, and Philip seems to talk about this as far as farts and whatnot beforehand, so it sounds like this isn't the first time he farted in front of her. Maybe if it was like, my sexy partner and I, who I just met and we were going on our first date, then maybe.
Wouldn't it be I mean, he has said in the Discord that they've been dating for a long time.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be crazy if he hadn't farted in front of her until then? And that's why this fart was so bad, because he had been holding it in for like 7 years.
Yeah.
Maybe it's his fault.
Maybe. Oh, shit. I don't know what to believe in now.
He's trying to do a nice thing, dude, and it ends up being $100 mistake.
Well, sometimes you just gotta let it rip, you know? Beyblade.
Yeah, dude, he's like, you know what? I treat life like I treat a Beyblade. I just let it rip, you know what I mean?
Just all out there.
So, yeah, it's totally her fault. She didn't grab the keys. Like, honestly, I feel like you were just actually trying to prepare her for the real world, because the world isn't always going to just let you focus on one thing.
It's true.
Also, did you ever use lanyards? Like, did you ever put your keys on a lanyard?
No.
No? Okay, yeah, neither did I. I just, like, hook them to my belt loop with the clip. It's just the easiest way to do it. Plus, if anyone tries to take my keys, they just, like, fucking tug on my belt loop, and it's hilarious, because it's actually really hard to get it off. But I always love those videos of people who had their keys on lanyards, and then the lanyard got caught on the doorknob and swung back in right as the door closed and locked their keys inside. It's the greatest fucking shit. But yeah, it's totally her fault. So, secondly, has a fart ever cost you guys money? Keep up the good work, and here is to a great 2021. Josh, is a fart
How
ever
do you
cost you
top
money?
that? No, I've never farted and been like, well, I mean, maybe no, because like the only thing that I could think of that's possibly reasonable is you fart and you're like, whoops, that was more, and then like a pair of pants are ruined. Yeah, but that hasn't happened to me either. So maybe when I get a little bit older and parts of me start working a little bit less, then I'll have a story for you. But not right now, buddy.
You're like, I have yet to have to invest money into some
into the fart fund.
Yeah.
Not quite.
Oh my god. Well, I mean, now that I'm married to the person who apparently sharts like 5 times a year, it's definitely going to start costing me money. Here's the thing, though. It's not even my fart.
That's not the question. The question is, has a fart ever cost you guys money? It's not your fart.
It has never cost me money directly, but it probably will soon.
Right.
But actually, she's pretty much the breadwinner. She makes way more money than I do, and I'm also like part-time anyway.
Shit.
So yeah, she's paying for her own farts, you know?
You're
like,
such a good for nothing.
Shit. I know, dude. Maybe I need to start shitting my pants and she can buy my pants.
Yeah, I provide nothing for this couple. Maybe I should start making her spend more money on me. That's the right attitude.
Sam Fillion from Canada writes in and says, I got back into No Man's Sky yesterday to find a new planet, home planet for 2021. Also, I've got to ask you, Sam, do you do this every year? Do you like look for a home planet every year? Because that is so cool. I love that. Also, the fact that you're playing No Man's Sky is amazing. Fuck yeah. Best ongoing game. Eat shit, Fortnite. Found a new home planet. Happy New Year's, everyone. Thank you very much. Hopefully this one doesn't eat shit. I love all the jokes of like, here comes like fucking, have you seen those jokes that are like 2021? It's like the last day of 2021 and then it starts over and it's like January 1st, 2020 prestige. All these fucking 2021 jokes get me, dude. They're so funny.
Things just need to be different, damn it.
Yeah. So I fell onto the weirdest creature, a 3-legged thing that looked like a huge hairy ass with legs and made a sound very reminiscent of a high-pitched fart. I'm so glad of the community that we have cultivated here.
It is
90% of our questions are about butt stuff.
100% juvenile, but it's good.
It's awesome. My question, what is the weirdest character or creature you have ever seen in a video game lately? So, what is the weird one you've ever seen in a video game lately?
I mean, honestly, I kind of mentioned this when we were first talking, but like the fact that I fought a download window, it's not in the same like genre of it being like weird looking, but weird as like it was one of those biggest like what the fuck kind of moments where you're like, why am I doing this right now in a video game? I think the like kind of to what he's getting at for me more was, did you ever play a game called Spore back in the day?
Oh yeah, dude.
Where you could
where you created your own organism.
Yeah.
And they were just the weirdest looking things.
They were so weird, dude. And there were so many dicks that people made because of it. But like,
easy.
Yeah, that is probably one of the weirdest like from the past of just creating really goofy looking characters in there. So
I mean,
weird.
to throw out a weird, like, obscure reference for Small Soldier fans out there, they were like Gorgonites, but mutated Gorgonites, which is saying something, because the Gorgonites just look weird in general. Look cool, but weird. So,
right.
Yeah, an oddly obscure reference that, like, no one's going to understand there for you.
It's all good.
For me, the weirdest... I also love the way you phrase this question is so interesting to me, where you say, what is the weirdest creature you have seen? Okay, just seen in a video game lately. I thought it was like ever seen in a video game lately, which I was like, that's a weird way to phrase that. But I'm the person who phrased it that
You're
way,
just
not
putting
Sam.
words that don't
I'm
belong
stupid.
there.
I'm sorry, Sam. I'm an idiot. Trying to dunk
Trying
on
to
you.
do him dirty
and
like
I'm just
that.
dunking on my fucking self.
How could
dude.
you?
How fucking dare I? So, the weirdest shit I've seen, me in preparation for this, like, kind of like Souls-like year that I'm going to have, I have been watching a lot of, like, Bloodborne and Dark Souls lore. And the serpents in Dark Souls, the pseudo-dragon serpents, so creepy looking. They're the creepiest looking shit I've ever seen. They've got these fat teeth, gigantic eyeballs, and what looks vaguely like a flesh mustache. It's so gross. Seriously, it's the grossest shit I've ever seen in my life.
Sounds
also, gross. I believe they're either called the Old Ones or the Old Gods, something similar to that in Bloodborne. The, like, Lovecraftian-esque creatures that you have to have insight to see, and you eventually obviously see them throughout the game because you fight them, but they're just so gross and weird looking.
Yep.
They're just so disgusting, and yeah, easily the weirdest looking fucking creature I've ever seen. From Software knows how to make some weird creatures. Easy.
They sure do.
They've got their hand on the pulse for what's weird. So, I was going to choke myself on spit there. Will C writes in and says, when gaming, what is your preferred drink? Alcohol or something with sugar? For me, when I'm playing alone, I'll have an occasional beer or a can of soda. But when I'm playing a game with friends using voice communication, I love the weirdest way that he said that. Is using voice communication. I will break out the gin.
Party now.
And if I'm playing bad, I always use the excuse. I always use the "I'm drunk" fool's line.
I'm drunk, fool.
So, what is your go-to drink while gaming? And does it change when you're by yourself or with friends?
I mean, I really only drink like coffee, water, and tea. When I drink like alcohol, usually it's not when I'm playing games, unless it's like a party kind of a thing, which doesn't really happen as much now because you can't go over, to people's houses. But like if you have like a Jackbox game or shit like that, like I'll drink. Usually I commonly just drink beer. But if I was to like, and I wanted to like really get drunk, I would definitely go for the gin as well. But I'm not like a crazy, like I don't usually drink a lot when I play games, to be honest, unless it's like we're at a party, like playing games and shit like that. But sorry to fail you there with no crazy drink talk, because Vaughn's going to do the same because he doesn't drink.
Yeah, I don't drink at all, so I'm not really gonna get you there. I drink Monsters and I drink water,
God,
and sometimes
Monsters.
an occasional soda. Yeah, dude, it's a fucking habit. It's just like I gotta stay awake somehow.
I can't.
So
do energy drinks. Those things fuck
really,
with me.
you can't.
They fuck
I don't
with me
drink
so
coffee.
hard.
Coffee is super weird.
Coffee
to me.
does nothing to me.
Especially since I like worked at like actually like producing the coffee.
Right.
I just can't. I can't smell coffee. It makes me want to throw up. I fucking hate it.
Yeah. For Christmas, I was gonna send you like a big bag of coffee.
I'll kill you, dude. I'll straight up murder you. I fucking hate the smell of coffee. It's so gross.
Oh,
so what do I normally drink? I normally just drink like water.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty boring like
Yeah.
that.
Nothing too crazy. I don't drink alcohol at all.
Even though it always looks like I'm partying, it's always water in this cup.
Yeah. See, you're giving them the wrong idea. Everybody's thinking you're sloshed on the podcast.
Oh, I'm fucked.
No, dude. He's drinking some water.
Some water,
so,
baby.
sorry to depress you. We are boring and do not actually drink. Or I don't drink.
I drink. I just don't usually drink when I'm playing games. I don't know. Even though, like...
You're like, I like to keep my senses fresh for when I'm, fucking shredding people in COD.
I play all these roguelikes, man. They're challenging. I can't be drunk. I'm not getting nowhere.
Yeah, you gotta have your senses. You gotta have your wits about.
How am I gonna play all these card games if I'm drunk?
Exactly, dude. Fucking Will, get your head out of your ass, bro. Like Josh is. How's he gonna be good at games if he's drunk? Will also writes in and says, I feel like you guys may have been asked this question before. If that is true, then my next question is, where did you buy those glasses, Vaughn? I just bought them on Amazon. It's pretty easy to find blue light glasses. Yeah, just found frames that I enjoyed. Not very exciting. Once again, it's just because I'm a bitch ass. It has nothing to do with my actual vision. So that's fun. Chase Hopkins, my friend, writes in it and says, what are your thoughts on 2020 as a whole? Josh, what are your thoughts on 2020?
It's garbage. I mean, personally, like, a lot of good things happened in my life other than being, quarantined from a lot of the world. But, like, I got a house. Things have improved. Like, they were never bad, but, like, the bond between my wife and I are definitely much stronger just because through this we like had to help each other out in a lot of ways. And now because we have our own place, we started having our like my wife's dog over all the time, and she lives with us now, and I really like having the dog over because the dog is great. And like, all of my family is healthy throughout all of this. So like, I can't complain, kind of a thing. Like, things are okay. Like, I got a good job in 2020 that I'm really enjoying. I like what I do. The podcast is, getting to a place where we're starting to build a community. A lot of things are happening, and like, there's a lot of good going on. But man, 2020 fucking sucks. Like, what an awful year, and it's not stopping. Like, that's the thing. Like, I hate there's so many people who are like, it's 2021, COVID's over, and you're like, what are you talking about? Like, nothing has changed. Like, it still sucks. Like, are you looking outside? Like, nothing's different. But we'll see. Hopefully it's not.
I mean, I got like $1,800 for free this year, Like, it's pretty good.
So stupid. Yep. I'm glad.
It's so fucking dumb, dude. For me, thoughts on 2020 as a whole, we've covered this in the past. Since I was like an essential employee throughout 2020, I was one of the lucky people who didn't lose my job. I did, like, when I worked at my previous job, because I switched jobs within the past couple of months. I'm an essential employee, so I can just keep working. I could also work from home at my new job if I had to. But like, I've been, however much, like, I'm not a religious person, I've been very blessed with how my life has been in 2020. Basically, things have been going for the most part good. As far as I know, my family was not really impacted all that much by the coronavirus. My wife, like, nothing really bad happened with her job. I feel so bad because I was talking to my wife about this the other day. I was like, and I think I talked about this on the episode of Let's Be Geek I recorded with Chris, but 2020 is actually probably, considering that I've been trying to make content on the internet for so long and how much traction we've gained in 2020, this is actually probably one of the best years in recent when it comes to that specific aspect of my life.
Yeah.
Where it's like,
I've
made so much great content this year, and I've met so many amazing people because of it.
Right.
But the year does blow.
Yeah.
Like, just everything that's happened, not even just with the coronavirus, but also with, the all the issues with the police. You have protests, you have everything. Just literally everything that has happened in 2020 just to make it the most dog shit year ever. The presidential race that seemingly is just never going to end, even though we thought we had a president. It's like, nah, you don't have a president. You know, what does that mean? Like, I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
It's just never going to end. Yeah, 2020 prestige. Yeah. But also I haven't been affected by it all that much, and I feel terrible that people have. I made a joke about like $1,800 for free, but sadly there are people out there who have been without a job, kind of like living on unemployment for a long time, and they're just getting $600, which is like, granted, is a decent amount of money. Like, you could do a lot with $600, but they possibly haven't been able to pay their rent and everything, so it all fucking blows. Yeah. But hopefully 2021 is better. Like I said, my life wasn't all that impacted, so please don't pity me in any way. Like, I'm very sorry, and I actually kind of feel terrible that my life has been at least decent this year while everyone else's is kind of blown. So I hope everything gets better for everyone else in 2021. If my life stays the same, I'm absolutely okay with it. I got married, have an amazing wife. I have a job that I don't fucking hate and want to blow my brains out every day. Like, I get to play video games and talk to my friends. Like, it's fucking great. Like, my life is great, kind of, in a sense. So
my greatest life.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm so sorry to everybody else.
It's shitty. Let's move on, because there's not a good way to transition from this.
Absolutely not. So Captain Bang writes in and says, thought on the future of AR and VR in indie games. I feel like that's a direction we'd be moving towards, but we really haven't seen a lot of indie titles that use VR or AR. So, Josh, what do you think about the integration of VR and AR into indie games?
I think we'll be there eventually, but I think the tech is kind of out of reach for many people who are indie right now. Like, the reason why there's such a big expansion of indie games is because development for them has become a lot more easier over the years, right? So you have things like Unity, and you're able to create these games because there's a lot of assets, there's a lot of knowledge that's already out there. This is like a totally new field, right? I mean, granted, VR and AR has been out for a while now, right? But it's still relatively new in the scheme of things, like this span of
the grand scheme of
things.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm dumb. So I think that it's something that it will get to, but like, we still don't even know the state of VR and AR type games, because games like Half-Life Alyx will come out and people are like, wow, this is like redefining what VR can be. And then you'll have other games that come out and people are like, yeah, it's good, but we don't really know if VR is going to make it anywhere. You know, it's not as accessible. Like, it's hard, because as an indie developer, you obviously want to work on your passion, right? You want to build something that is something that you believe in, something that you enjoy, but you also want it to be lucrative enough where, you know, you can make a living doing it, right? So like, I don't know that market is big enough right now for people to do that from an independent scale. That's not to say it doesn't happen. It's just, I don't think it's very often, because it's a lot easier and more accessible to do it in a more normal space right now, which is usually, you know, working on 2D platforming type games or roguelikes or things like that. Like, that's normally a more common version because it's something that's more accessible. But we'll see. I mean, I'm not really sure the state of AR and VR. I also don't have any equipment to play those type of game, like a VR game. So Same. Like, I can't really talk too much about the state of it other than what I've heard. So like, maybe there's this whole community out there that I don't even fucking know, and like, it's the next up and coming thing.
I personally think the future of AR and VR when it comes to indie games, I don't think that they're like heavily integrated. I don't think that will be for a long time, right? Because I think the next hurdle for indie games is actually moving into what would be like a AAA quality. Like, we've seen things like Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, right, which is easily AAA quality, and then we've got games like Project Sky, which is trying to like kind of push the bounds of what makes an indie game. Mm-hmm. We've got things like Pray for the Gods that's trying to push it as well, being kind of like very reminiscent of Shadow of the Colossus, right, and stuff like that. So I think what basically the landscape of indie games is going to try to move toward is trying to perfect everything and get away from this kind of like stigma of indie games only being these like pixel art 2D games, instead moving into more of the what would be like AAA aesthetics, that would be the first hurdle to get over. And then I think by that time, it's very possible that VR becomes much more accessible. So I think probably in the next 10 years, we'll see things really start to shape up with VR. But I think it will take at the very least that long for indie games, like indie game devs, to get really into it. Because, like, imagine getting a dev kit for just a console in general, how hard that is. Wherein, like, I would imagine getting one for like PSVR would be even harder, if not like the Oculus Quest and stuff like that. Yeah, like I imagine it would be much harder, but this is also just me talking from like I'm not 100% certain. I have no idea how hard it is to get dev kits, so it's possible that it's a lot easier than I think, but I doubt it is. So I think honestly we won't see like a large integration of VR and AR into indie games for at least a decade, which sounds bad, but like I think it'll at least take a decade just for the technology to get up to a reasonable standpoint where everyone can actually kind of like invest time into it, and it's not just like, oh, I have a VR, but it sits there collecting dust most of the time.
Yeah,
or they just play VR chat.
Yeah, I briefly touched upon it, but like I think another big part of it is really just the fact that like even if they make it, there's not a lot of people with these VR sets, right? It's like who is playing it realistically? Like there's people who have them obviously, but that's not the grand majority, and I just don't see indie devs, like I don't see a slew of indie devs. Maybe like one or two will be like, oh yeah, we want to do this VR title, but like you're not going to get a crazy amount of independent developers who want to build on a system that is a very, very finite amount of a player base. So
Yeah, I mean, granted, I believe Captain Bang also brought up in the listener question section that especially now that the Quest 2 being a pretty affordable headset, they are getting a little bit more, they're becoming more affordable, and they're becoming more standalone units with like with the Oculus Quest instead of the Rift. So that's very true. I'll be interested to see what happens, really, but I'm going to stand out on a limb here and say that I don't think that it becomes like a widely adapted thing for at least a decade.
Yep.
Which sounds crazy, but that's how much I think it'll take. Like, that's how long I think it will take to actually perfect the hardware and it to actually gain enough traction, let alone for indie developers to start jumping on and developing for it. So I'll be very interested to see how it happens. I think it could be really cool. Like imagine a developer approaching a VR title in the same way that the developers behind Baba Is You did, where it's like just completely interacting with the world and its systems in an entirely different way.
Right.
It would remind me of like, have you ever seen the Community episode where the principal gets obsessed with the VR headset and it's basically just how to navigate Windows with the VR headset?
No, that's hilarious.
It would remind me of that, honestly. But I hope we answered it decent enough. I think it would be a cool direction to move into, but I don't think it'll happen for a really long time.
Yeah.
But I do think it will happen. Granted, I do think it will happen because I don't think people will let VR go. I don't think it's going to go anywhere because we finally now have, we can now actually kind of invest in VR, and it's being taken a little bit more seriously with the Rift and everything. So moving on to our last few questions, Robert Ring, which is Rob from the Classic Gaming Podcast, please check it out. He's a great guy, and he and Jay make great content. So Robert Ring writes in and says, question 1, when you guys play car games, do you prefer first person or third person close or third person far away cameras? I liked the third person far away one. First person might be technically the best, especially for more simulation learning games or simulation leaning games. That's like a Assetto Corsa probably is what he's talking about. But I like to be able to see the car, but the up close 3D camera usually doesn't let me see enough of the road. So when you play car games, which is so often, Josh, when you play car games, what do you play in? Third person or first person, third person close, or third person far away?
Yeah, you basically hinted at it, but probably both yourself and I are not the biggest card game enthusiasts. I do like, a few time to time, but like it's not my genre of choice. But if I had to pick, like I don't like first person card games at all because
Same.
I don't know, it just doesn't make sense to me. I like need to see the card to know like where I'm at.
Yeah, your like depth perception is off. Like when you're driving a car, it's much easier to gauge depth, but when you're looking at it through a screen, you're like, how close is that?
Yeah, it's like really weird to me. So I would generally go for third person far away so I can get a good like bird's eye angle of like, okay, here's where everything is and like how to actually maneuver through the world. I don't know what, like why, just other than that, everything feels kind of like awkward to me.
Yeah, I feel just about the same because that's when you can accurately gauge depth.
Mm-hmm.
Like every time I hop into GTA 5 or something like that, GTA Online, I can't do it in first person. Like driving around the cars in first person is just so obnoxious. I have to do third person, like borderline an isometric view of the car because like I just can't see enough of the road. Plus, just the world doesn't work the same way in these video games. Nobody just gets the fuck out of your way. They're always just like, I will be hit by you.
Yeah.
I will. It's just like, no. So yeah, I think we pretty much settled on third person far away. First person is a little bit jarring, but I understand why people like it. I think it's so cool when people get really into driving simulators to the point where they actually get like the whole setup of the wheel and everything. Yeah. I had several customers when I worked for GameStop purchase that kind of stuff. Like we had a Ferrari wheel. It was very cool. Really, really cool. So moving on to his second question. Can either of you recommend any good indie games based on racing or otherwise driving cars? I only know a handful, and I don't believe I've ever played any in the indie realm. So I think the obvious answer would be Inertial Drift. Just literally, like, I thought it was kind of interesting that he wrote that in and we had that developer interview. It's kind of serendipitous.
Yeah.
Inertial Drift looks really, really cool. Another one that I would recommend would be Art of Rally. I asked for a code a long time ago. Like, it was several months ago. But I was so bad at the game that I couldn't play it.
Oh, my God.
So I didn't talk about it because I didn't want to say it was a bad game just because I'm bad at it. But it's got a very, very cool art style. I really like it. It's very minimalist, similar to like Lonely Mountains Downhill, which I think is really cool, especially when you see the people. They're like little block people. It's fucking hilarious. I think it's awesome. It's very visually pleasing. I like it a lot. The drifting, it feels a little bit weird. It feels like you're constantly trying to drift on a wet surface, so you're sliding much more than you'd believe you would. But I feel like that's just me not actually understanding how it works. I'm a bigger fan of games like Descenders or Lonely Mountains Downhill, where technically it's not like a car or a racing game, but it is kind of like a driving game in a sense, where I just like that a lot more because it's more of like a puzzle versus like a skill-based driving game. But I think for me, yeah, check out Inertial Drift. It looks really, really cool. Or check out Art of Rally. Art of Rally looks really, really awesome. Yeah. The little bit I played of it, even though I was terrible, it felt really good until I started to drift and I was like, too far. Yeah.
No, makes
so
sense.
Do you have any other car games that you want to flip out there that you're just like, check out this car game, Rob?
No, I think Inertial Drift is the only one that I really have. But the one that you mentioned actually has pretty positive reviews on Steam.
Oh, yeah.
Like
people really like it.
It's really high up there. So I would check out both of those. I personally, like I said, I'm not really much of a car person, like both game and in real life anyway. So like,
Same.
Yeah, not the right people to ask.
I actually made fun of him for it on my stream. I was like, why'd you fucking write it a car question, dude? What are you doing?
This guy.
And he's like, yeah, I wrote it in because you guys know nothing about cars.
It's like two dumbos. Be like, what? Cars? What do they do?
Great guy. He's such a nice boy. So that is the end of this episode. Thanks everyone so much for listening. If you would like to chat with us outside the show, you can do so in a bunch of different ways. Follow the podcast itself on Twitter at IndiePod. There you will get notifications of things that might actually end, like sales and stuff that might end by the time the episode comes out, or other stuff, quick news stories that we might not be able to slot into the episode, stuff like that. So make sure you follow us at IndiePod on Twitter. You can follow me at HydeLegion, HYDELEGION, on Twitter for all of my dumb bullshit, the like Let's Plays I'm doing over on YouTube, or possibly more streams that I will be doing over on twitch.tv/HydeLegion. Same. It's pretty easy. I made it pretty easy. So you can also find Josh at _George90 over on Twitter, and check out his Twitch streams over on it's twitch.tv/the_George, I believe. Correct?
Correct.
Awesome. Anything else you want to shout out before we hop off the pod?
No, not right now. I mean, we have hopefully Let's Plays that will come out one day, maybe. We'll see.
It's very possible.
Very possible. But at this time, no. Just check out our streams and keep watching our content.
Awesome. Back through the housekeeping, of course, check out the Michael O'Kane of Level 91 Entertainment Inertial Drift developer interview going live this Wednesday, the day after for patrons, 2 days before for plebes. Please check out the IndiePod store for our t-shirts and other merch. You got the YouTube shout out, of course, if you want to watch these episodes not live. They're just video. If you want to watch the video episodes, do that, or our possible Let's Plays. Please leave us reviews on iTunes or other listening platforms in which you can do so. It'll help us out a lot, gain more of a community, and it might help us get into PAX one day, which would be really, really cool without having to pay a shitload of money. And lastly, thank you so much to our amazing patrons. Just fantastic. We got Will C. We got Mixomatosis, aka Mix, Zach Durham, Chase Hopkins, Philip Renshaw, the Wombat Emperor of Australia. We got Chris Penwell, Josh Nichols, and Sam Fillion from Canada. Thank you all so much. I'm super excited for the changes we will be making to our Patreon, which is a mailbag, not necessarily a mailbag, it's a book club, where we are going to, every 2 months, be playing an indie game all together, and we're going to include the patrons specifically in these episodes, and then those episodes I actually believe are going to go live for everybody, so you can listen, right. And it'll kind of maybe you'll want to become a patron because of that. And then we will also have episodes going live on Patreon that are more just about specific topics like us, or possibly an indie game topic similar to roguelikes, or just anything in between. So become a patron and you will find out. You also get special access to a chat or 2 chats now on our Discord, a role on our Discord, and a whole bunch more. So thank you so much for listening, and we will talk to you all next week.
Bye, y'all.